Welcome to Slow Medicine Radio. Our host is integrative medicine Dr. Michael Finkelstein. Michael offers medical advice from a holistic paradigm, including both medical and metaphysical philosophies from the full spectrum of human experience. Slow Medicine Radio offers fresh ideas on how to attain a state of wellness that seems distant given the limitations of today's medical paradigm. It introduces you to thought leaders who connect the dots between theory and practice, examining health from a broad perspective with regards to medical diagnoses, conventional and alternative therapies, healthcare policy, and related topics that warrant further thought and discussion. Slow Medicine Radio does not prescribe to take this or do that. Instead, it offers an open-minded, intelligent, and practical approach to living, resulting in greater health individually and collectively. Here is Dr. Michael Finkelstein, the founder of Sunraven, the home of slow medicine in Bedford, New York.
Well, welcome to Slow Medicine Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Michael Finkelstein, and we're here every Monday at 5 o'clock on WVOX, 1460 on your AM dial, and worldwide at WVOX.com. And the mission of this program is to provide you a forum for discussion of things that are interesting to you with regard to your health, and to go beyond conventional prescriptions of what it means to be healthy or how to be healthy by really evaluating more clearly those issues and discriminate between fact and fiction to help people understand how they themselves could take charge of their own health and abrogate a little less of the responsibility for health so that they can achieve a state of being that feels better, just simply feels better, and looks better for the future as well. Today, I don't have a guest in the studio, so today is a day for you and me to discuss whatever is on your mind. And so I want to give you the number, 914-636-0110. Again, it's 914-636-0110. 0110. So this is a really good opportunity, a free opportunity to speak to somebody that will at least listen to you carefully and give you the best that I can in terms of not necessarily advice, but a way of thinking about your own question. So if I do my job well, then you can pretty much figure out the answer for yourself. That's a lot of how I work, even though I do at times, of course, provide information. If I can get you to a place where you can see more clearly what it is that you need to do for yourself, and it makes it a lot easier for you to actually accomplish that. You don't need to memorize lists or simply follow procedure, but that you could just live your life. In fact, I think the best way to assess how you're doing is, you find that you're just living your life more often than not, or are you thinking about how healthy you are? Are you thinking about what's not working? Are you thinking about, what you need? As opposed to being in the moment and enjoying your life as best as you can, even with things, as we know, are often challenging. Today, I also want to acknowledge the day itself, the day we celebrate and honor Dr. Martin Luther King for his work in bringing awareness to the issues of human rights and justice. Obviously, that's as old as human history. There have been issues there as people have unfortunately sort of competed with each other for the limited resources that are perceived or real at times. And it leads to behaviors that we all know are far from the ideal in terms of harmony. And the reason it's relevant even to this show is when you're anxious about how you're going to be treated, you are getting into a state of the sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight response, anxiety, and that produces hormones and molecules that circulate through your system, cause inflammation and break down cells, impair your immune system, do a lot of things that can lead to literal health consequences, not to mention how you're just maybe not going to feel so well. So what Dr. Martin Luther King was doing perhaps was really to allow all people to be aware that all people deserve the ability to pursue their life with liberty and freedoms, but that in truth it was really important for the health of people. And it's important for us today just the same. So again, the number for you to call is 636-0110. I know that at times it might feel awkward to share a question, your thoughts about what's going on in your life or what goes on in somebody else's life. But I know for a fact that all of you have a question, because everywhere that I go, if I'm just sitting on a subway somewhere and somebody sees a book that I'm reading and figures out that I'm a doctor, half the time, even in the most obscure, impersonal ways, I get questions about, hey, are you a doctor? What do you think about this or that? In fact, I was just in the store this morning and somebody knew who I was and said, I just got my vitamin D level measured and it was a little low and I was told to take 5,000 international units of vitamin D and I got this capsule. Is that the right thing? So there are questions out there. I know it. I knew it when I went to medical school that my family already was bombarding me with questions, even though at that time I really knew very little. The interest in health and medicine is, of course, important. And we would love to have somebody in our camp, on our side, to give us some direction, answers to very specific questions. So that's really what the show's about. And so I want to encourage you to break through perhaps some of your anxiety, get out of the sympathetic nervous system into the parasympathetic by taking a deep breath, picking up the phone, calling 914-636-0110, and ask a question about how you can feel better, how you deal with your pain, how your emotional state is affecting your life, your relationships. As a reminder, I talk to people about all those things because they all interrelate. They get involved with the one thing that we call us, our ego sense of I feel this way today. And it's predicated on several things happening simultaneously. Predicated, of course, on how your physical body is, like if you're well rested, if you're not in pain, if you're well fed. Those things, obviously, that's how our physical body determines how we're doing in the moment. But then the next thing that we might think of right away is our mental emotional state. So are we sad? Are we happy? Are we angry? Are we upset? Are we fearful? Are we lonely? I mean, those emotional states that overlay however our physical body is doing as a secondary layer to our experience of life. This is now beginning to formulate 7 spokes of a wheel of health that I call the slow medicine wheel of health. And so if the first 2 spokes are the body and the mind, the other spokes I'll list for you, but you'll see how these all sort of matter and they all come together in a way that determines how you're really doing. And it affects you not just in terms of how you might answer that question, how are you, but it affects you on a cellular level. So getting back to where I know most people really do focus quite a bit is on their body. Am I going to get sick? Am I going to recover if I am sick? Am I going to live a long life? Those sorts of things that people for sure care about. These are all related. So you've got the body and the mind. And then we have a series of spokes that refer and reflect relationships. The first relationship is to the natural world. So as an example, if you're eating food that is not seasonal, then your relationship to the natural world, frankly, is not the same as if you were eating seasonal food. If you're exercising, let's say, obviously we talk about that, and that's a good thing for the most part. But let's say you're doing an exercise today in January, like swimming, because you go to a gym, you have the opportunity to go to a gym that has a pool, and you swim in January. Now, I'm not saying that that's bad exercise, but that's not a seasonal activity. There's some people, though, who do jump into the ocean on January 1st. I know those. That's seasonal. a little extreme, but pretty fascinating, and I imagine pretty thrilling for those people who do it. But no, for the most part, swimming in January in the Northern Hemisphere is not seasonal. So there's ways that we relate to nature. Are you going to bed at night, or are you staying up late into the evening is maybe more common? Are you aware of the cycles of the moon and how that affects planting? Most farmers know when the full moon and new moon exist because certain plants, like root vegetables, will be selectively planted on specific dates relating to the lunar cycle. And that's, again, relating to nature. The next relationship, the fourth spoke of the slow medicine wheel, is our relationships to other people. So, of course, that dominates a lot of our lives in terms of the focus and attention. The things that keep us awake at night have to do with our relationships, starting with perhaps our relationships with parents, then getting to our siblings, but then our intimate partnerships and our children. We also have relationships to our friends, peer groups, coworkers. And so all those relationships fit into the category of, are we living in harmony? Are we feeling supported? Are we enjoying our lives? Are we lonely? Those relationships take up a tremendous amount of time in our lives and may be largely the reason we want to be healthy is so that we can enjoy those relationships. The fifth spoke of the medicine wheel. It has to do with the relationships to community. So taking an extension of our relationships to others, but looking at the collective, the community in which we live. Do we feel supported? Is this community, as Dr. Mehmet Oz suggested a couple of weeks ago when he was on the show, that you can be healthier if your friend group, if your peer group, if the people you spend time with are doing some of the things you think are good ideas. It makes it a lot easier in our lives to do that ourselves. So the community in which we live provides a certain rhythm and flow for our lives. If we are part of a religious community, as an example, then every Sabbath day, once a week, we might find ourselves in the same place, considering the same subject, singing or praying, being together. If you're in a community of artists, then you might find energy from coexisting with other artists. A community such as a philharmonic orchestra is a community of people spend a lot of time together and they work together to create literal harmony. So community is a very vital part of health. In fact, I find a lot of people are not as healthy as they could be, in particular because they feel an absence of connection to a community. So that's one of the reasons that at Sunraven, which is the home of slow medicine, the small working farm which I live and work, is a place where we invite people to come and spend time doing programs, such as our garden program that will be beginning, if you can believe it, in just 7 or 8 weeks. But as spring comes, I know most people look forward to that day. There's something that we offer in terms of a space which also not only cultivates plants, but cultivates community. The sixth spoke of the slow medicine wheel of health is our relationship to the divine. It's very important, I think, for people, whether they believe in God or not, to acknowledge a relationship to something greater than themselves, not simply the nihilistic view that I'm the center of the world and that it only matters if I'm here, but the understanding that there's something more permanent than our individual lives, something that perhaps precedes us, something that will exist after us, that provides the great context of life and living and gives us an opportunity to appreciate the vastness, the awesomeness of the world and the universe. By thinking about that, without believing in necessarily specifically a creator or the stories around creation or rules about that, but just by being able to appreciate the vastness of what exists, instead of feeling small, and inconsequential, because that's not where I'm going with this, one can feel part of something that's absolutely extraordinary, and then see extraordinary beauty in the world around. And that's really a thrill to be alive and to have any of your senses operating, and even something that people can do when they're pretty sick. In fact, sometimes what saves people, what allows them to get through the hardest days, is the fact that they can still sense and appreciate beauty. And that's the essence of this sixth spoke of the slow medicine wheel of health. Finally, the seventh and last spoke of the slow medicine wheel of health has to do with your life's purpose. When it's all said and done, we want to be healthy, as I said, to have these relationships. We are fed and supported by community, by our relationship and appreciation for the natural world and the divine and sacred. But then the question exists for most people. Why am I here? Like, what am I doing here? Can I contribute? In fact, the question extends, can I contribute to some of what I see here to support it so that perhaps I can feel better about myself by helping other people achieve states of health, quality of life that makes their lives better. And in so doing, I support the whole. In fact, so many people choose paths in their life, whether it's a profession and an occupation or whether it's simply the act of just being a child, a parent, a teacher, a babysitter, an animal caretaker, whatever it is, there's all different ways that people share themselves to support other life. And that's really quite important. Without that, where would we really be? And what differentiates us from other animals, I believe, is this state of consciousness and this awareness of self that is not sort of an ego-driven preoccupation, but is one where we can, by virtue of seeing our place in the world and our contribution to us, feel justified for being alive, and then to play in this orchestra, this music, this great dance that is thrilling and gives meaning to every moment that we can engage. I believe in the end, the reason we want to be healthy is that so we can contribute to the whole like this. So those 7 spokes of the wheel of health are ways that you could look at your own state of being right now. And rather than just looking at your body, what's your doctor say about your blood pressure or your cholesterol, or, are you going to make it to be 95 years old? You realize that the better ways to determine how healthy you are understood by evaluating, looking at some of these other features, these functional states of being that determine how it's working as a whole. In fact, the word health and the word whole come from the same Anglo-Saxon root word, halen, which means whole. So health is a state of wholeness, and that wholeness is determined by, at least in my way of putting it together, these 7 areas. So that's the slow medicine wheel of health. So with that as a primer, I want to give you this number again, 914-636-0110. I did receive an email, by the way, because last week I invited you to call, knowing that a lot of you wouldn't call because you don't like hearing yourself on radio or speaking in public. So I invited people to send me an email, which several people did, which has provided me with certain questions. So I'm going to start there. But again, I want you to think about calling, take that step, ask about maybe one of those 7 areas of your life, reflect on that for a moment and say, gee, you know what? I guess it makes sense that these must contribute to my health. So I'm having trouble here in this relationship. I'm having a question in this part of my life that I didn't think about it, because usually with health, I'm thinking about my body. I'm thinking about, what do I feed myself? I'm thinking about rules. I'm thinking about supplements. And by the way, I'll answer any and all of those questions. In fact, the questions I did receive are on those subjects, as is often the case. But I want to invite you to think beyond that. Talk to me about other functional states of being, like how do you feel when you wake up in the morning? What's the dominant emotional state you notice yourself in? What keeps you awake at night? These are the types of questions that I think we can explore that will be interesting in the sense that by seeing them more clearly, maybe you have a sort of a plan and a path to balancing that out. And in each and every one of these areas, if you can achieve a little bit better balance, then the whole is supported. This is essentially how people tune a race car. There's all these different moving parts. There's 4 tires. There's this complex engine. And they keep going round and round the car, looking at each tire, making sure the tread is right, the pressure is right. They do that 4 times. Then they look into the engine and they look at the engine block, make sure everything is tight, make sure all the fluid is filled, and they go into each reservoir checking. And then they go into the lines and make sure the lines aren't clogged. And then they go into the lubricants and they make sure that everything that needs to be lubricated is lubricated. And they have this big checklist. And they go around and around and around, constantly fine-tuning. And that's sort of the nature of how one takes care of your health. But it's not about simply the physical parameters. What I'm adding here are thoughts about the mental, emotional states and our relationships, your life's purpose, community, etc. Anyway, so the first question that I'm going to talk about, though, I think is on everyone's mind, because I hear this everywhere, which is about food. And I want to, I'll read the question. It's, so I'm so confused. There's so much information out there on diets. And, I've tried many diets and I've lost some weight at times and then I've gained it back, but I'm still not sure I'm doing the right thing. What do you advise? And so this is an important subject because we have to eat, right? So we're choosing what to eat several times a day. Now, I'll start off by saying and accepting that not everyone necessarily makes choices like they have a large menu of items that they can choose from for each and every meal. But, we shop. We figure out what's going to be in our refrigerators and our pantries. When we do go out, we get to choose from a list of items on a menu. Even if we're really limited in resources, we may still choose between one basic product or another. And the question can be, if I had to choose between rice and pasta, is there a way I can make that decision? If I can choose between potatoes and carrots, is there, a way to look at that? And then when our choices get broader, we get even more confused because now we've got 30 vegetables we can pick at the market or, 5, 10 different animal products and fishes, and we can eat processed foods like grains and pastas and cakes and cookies and things in packages and things in bottles. And, just looking at the size of an average grocery store, you realize there are a lot of choices. And for most people, I think that gives them a headache. And because you're obligated to make some choices. So how can one deal with this food question? Especially in light of the fact that there's so many people, if you just listen to the radio, not necessarily my show, but other shows and, the experts and the books out there on self-help talk about different types of diets. There's high protein, there's low fat, there's low carb, there's Whole30, there's, all sorts of different diets. Over the years, we've migrated, in fact, almost like fads from one to the other. And it would be normal for people to be skeptical that anyone really knows what they're talking about, let alone that there's any particular diet that really makes sense. And I'm in that latter camp. I don't know that there's any particular diet, at least a prescribed diet, that makes a lot of sense beyond what I want to tell you. But the issue for food is fairly straightforward. And if you want to complicate it further, that's your decision. But I wouldn't recommend you complicate it any more than it has to be. To me, the idea is the more of your diet that's whole food, the better you're going to be. So that means foods that don't even have labels because they don't need to have a label. Like an apple doesn't need to say apple on it. It's an apple. But if you buy a box of apple juice, it's going to have a label, and that's going to say apple made from concentrate, cane sugar, water, high fructose corn syrup, maybe a couple other preservatives, maybe a caramel color or two. So all of a sudden you get a label. It's clearly not a whole food. Same thing with a grain, like pasta. So pasta is wheat with water, often other things, particularly as in many bread products, additional vitamins, because in the processing of the whole wheat, those vitamins and minerals are taken out of it, and so they put them back in, like niacin. So, and there may be other things in pastas, as opposed to buying rice, which is a whole grain. And when you buy a package of rice, like a big bag of rice, it says rice on it. It doesn't say anything else. And so if you can move, not 100%, I never really talk about absolutes because I find that drives most people into states of aggravation and neurosis, which is not the point here. The whole point for me is to make this easier for you, not more complicated. Again, you can choose complicated, but I'd recommend you not. So the thought is that you would focus on whole foods as much as you can. So eat the whole vegetables. Eat even the whole fish, meaning if you go to the counter and you see a fish, it's a trout, it doesn't have a little label on it. It says trout. It's a whole fish. You know it's a trout. It's got its head and it's got its scales and it's got its tail. You may not like all of that, so then don't buy the whole fish. Buy a fillet of fish, but even if you buy a fillet of salmon, it still doesn't have a label. It says salmon on it because nothing else is added to it. Those are whole foods. If you stick to whole vegetables, whole fruits, and whole animal products, you're far better off in all likelihood than you are today. That's the simplest diet I can give you. For most of you, that will get you far down the road of improving. The fact is that those whole foods have better nutrient value. For the most part, you can't overeat too many of them. Like how many apples can you really eat? So yeah, there's sugar in apples and whatever, but how many apples, whole apples, can you really eat? So that's where I would go with this. If you go to a supermarket, the simplest way to understand this is to shop on the edges of the supermarket. The vegetables are usually on one side, and then the meat is on the back in the refrigerated section, where the meat guy and women are, and, the fish people. That's where you shop. You sort of stop when you get to the area. And again, I'm being relative here. I don't mean never eat these things, but things in boxes and packages, even sort of the dairy products that you find so much of, is processed to some extent. So, but it's still, you'll find it on the edge, and whole milk, whole dairy, even though we can split hairs, and maybe after a break that we're going to take in a minute, we can come back to this conversation. But just for now, think of shopping on the edges of the supermarket, whole foods, and think about how that might change what's on your plate. And if you can go there as the next step, I think you're going to be better off. So again, this is Slow Medicine Radio. I'm going to give you this number because we're going to take a break, and then when we come back, I invite you again to call. The number is 914-636-0110. So take a moment, think about a question, call me, and we'll be back in a minute to talk.
You're listening to Slow Medicine Radio. You can find out more about the show and the work of Dr. Michael Finkelstein by visiting his website, slowmedicinedoctor.com. Slow Medicine Radio is sponsored by the Slow Medicine Foundation, dedicated to providing community-centered experiential and reflective learning for individuals, families, and groups, offering educational programs, events, and resources, as well as insightful health evaluations with customized medical guidance. Dr. Finkelstein works with his wife, Robin Queen Finkelstein, at their farm, Sunraven, in Bedford, New York. And they invite you to visit and take advantage of this unique resource, including men's and women's groups and couples programs. If you think about it, much of what we experience when we don't feel well is a result of the fast world and how it affects us. Therefore, if fast is the disease, then slow is the medicine. Visit Sunraven, the home of slow medicine in Bedford, New York. Go to slowmedicinedoctor.com or call 914-218-3113. And thank you for tuning in Mondays at 5 p.m. right here on 1460 WVOX.
Welcome back to Slow Medicine Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Michael Finkelstein. I'm talking to you here from the studios at WVOX, 1460 AM, and worldwide at WVOX.com. And I was talking a little bit about the Slow Medicine Wheel of Health, the 7 spokes that I believe constitute a state of wholeness, which to me reflects our state of being and thus our health. And I was talking a little bit about food and inviting you to call. The number is 914-636-0110. I'm sorry, let's do it again. 914-636-0110. Any and all questions would be welcome. And I know there is somebody on the line. Peter, welcome to Slow Medicine Radio.
Thanks, Michael. It's a pleasure being on.
So, how are you doing today?
Very well. Very well. Had a very productive day.
That's good. So what's on your mind?
I just wanted to call in to discuss a workshop that we're going to be doing at Sunraven.
Right, go ahead. It's on abundance. We talked about it when you were on air here a couple of weeks ago. Mm-hmm. And tell us about it.
Yeah, so for those who did not hear that, what I do is I combine my past life, which was in finance and business, with kind of this new new track that I'm on, which is a more spiritual, holistic, kind of slow medicine approach to life. And I really, passionate about sharing and teaching things I've learned around finance and more specific, or more generally than finance, abundance. And through my own searching and stumbling, I definitely found a place of abundance that is different from what I thought it was. And it really changed my life, and this workshop is about sharing that discovery with your audience.
I really appreciate that. When I was talking about the slow medicine wheel of health earlier, talking about how these things interrelate, one of the common, let's say, elephants in the room of somebody's life, and often reflects in challenges that we find in relationships, particularly in our partnerships, intimate relationships, is on the subject of resources, time and money, for the most part, and how when we feel depleted in some way, and that could be a relative state. There are plenty of people with a lot of resources, a lot of time, a lot of money, who still can feel unavailable or unattended. Is that feeling of emptiness, that this is the reason why it's not just about money. There's an aspect of this, but it's such a important factor to address because, as I said, it's sort of the elephant in the room often. It's there, it's there. And if it doesn't get looked at, examined, and then if there isn't a process to really help people figure out how to renegotiate and rebalance it and maybe use different filters or framework, it could really be nagging. It could sort of produce somewhat like a cancer in a person's life.
Yeah, and I find that, I think in our own kind of internal relationships with ourselves and those in a marriage or any kind of relationship, really, the important thing is communication. And so in this workshop, we're going to be talking a lot about intelligent, informed ways of communicating about this topic, which is an incredibly charged. Money is probably the number one, if not, one or two, leading causes of friction in relationships and in our lives, especially in our Western culture. Money and this feeling of always being scarce, always not being enough, is so pervasive. So this workshop is an opportunity for people to kind of gather in a safe place and really examine, their beliefs, what they're communicating to themselves about money and abundance, and how that's expressing in their lives. And it's about learning practical, simple, everyday skills that can help us become more conscious of this relationship that we have with money, and how we relate to others around money, and ways of freeing ourselves from certain blocks and bondages that we might not even be conscious of. And so this isn't really about, a get-rich-quick scheme or teaching you how to invest or the more conventional skills around money. Those are things that I do help my clients with. But this kind of introductory workshop is really about the emotional, spiritual, and, community aspect of abundance.
That's great. Who would you say would be the perfect person to think about doing this?
Can you repeat the question?
Who do you think? Who would be the audience for this, and who do you think should think about coming?
I think that's a great question. I think, anyone could come to this workshop. Anyone who feels any kind of imbalance with their financial lives. Anyone who's feeling restricted in any way around money. It's not even someone who's very sophisticated from a technical standpoint, in the financial industry, or someone who's even wealthy. This is a great opportunity for someone like that to come and really delve into some more interpersonal aspects of their life. And it's also for people who are less competent around the technical issues of money, and also want to sort of build skills there. So it really, I wouldn't say it's specifically for any typical person. Anyone who just finds that they could use some support and some tools in their lives to feel more abundance, I think would be the perfect participant for this.
Well, thank you. So what time does the workshop begin?
So this is going to be it's coming up this Saturday. 10:30 a.m., and it's an all-day workshop from 10:30 to 4 p.m., and that includes a delicious cooked farm-to-table meal by you, I believe.
So happens. I will be doing that, yes.
Yeah.
We're getting our chickens to lay the eggs now.
Great.
So, well, that's great, Peter. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing this work with this audience. I think this is the time of year, too, in the winter, around the new year, shortly after, where people are starting to organize themselves, maybe redirecting themselves a little bit, taking on new habits. And as you're saying, there is a conventional approach to money, finances, a counselor that could help you deal with spreadsheets and budgeting. But this is beyond that. This is really first asking the question, what's abundance for you? And therefore, that target being refined that way helps one understand what they need to get there. And often, I think, what I found, when that gets reevaluated, concept of abundance, we need less money. What we need is better organization of the other things we do that bring us a state of fulfillment. And a lot of that gets into our relationships and how we take care of ourselves and what kind of community we're involved with. And this gets us back into the whole process of slow medicine. So.
Exactly. Yeah, and I love what you said. You said about abundance doesn't necessarily mean more, and I think that's one of the exercises we'll be doing in the workshop is examining our beliefs about money and about abundance and what that really is. And there's a lot of beliefs that we're programmed with that we're just overwhelmed with in our culture, and one of it is that more is always better. And I think one of the most kind of counterintuitive but most liberating truths about abundance is that once you really kind of begin to examine and know yourself, you begin to see how much less you actually need to feel abundant. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, whether you have $1 million in the bank or zero, as long as you feel abundant, that those details are irrelevant. So I think that's one of the most fundamental and most liberating discoveries. It's one that I made personally through my stumblings, as I mentioned earlier, and it can be such a liberating and then empowering truth because once you're freed from this sense of lack and need, then you can go out and be creative and experimental and not be in fear. You can be in more of a powerful position to express yourself.
Yeah, it's really understanding the quality issue. It's not so much the quantity issue, but it's the quality issue. Mm-hmm. Something that I do want to talk about a little bit later in the show because I think that comes back in a lot of areas of our life, including our physical body. And people talk about, my doctor says my blood pressure is high or whatever. It might be true. Our bank accounts may be a little drained. It might be true. But the quality of our life is not 100% tied to that. And if we could find ways of improving quality, then the quantity issue isn't as consequential. And my contention is actually, since we all do care about quantity, that we can actually have greater impact sometimes in the quantity by not addressing quantity head on, but by embracing quality, one of which is that quality question, which is what is abundance? What is it really that will make me feel full? Because if that's a better question, then you're likely to get a better answer.
Yeah, and that's important. Yeah, we'll be doing an exercise connecting, going to your point about quality. It's when you think about the more technical aspects of creating spending plans and visioning for your future. Once you understand what's of quality in your life and what's extraneous, what's not needed, you can then start connecting the dots, and you can connect your money life to your, part of my work I say I like to connect people to the world of money and heart. And, when you can really connect what you value, what you really care about with your money, that's a far more intelligent and quality way to be in your financial life than to just try to get more and more and more.
Right. Yeah. Oh, really good. Really good. I'm looking forward to Saturday myself. How would people get more information or register?
You can register on Slow Medicine on the website. And I think that you can also, if you want to do that, you can show up and register when you get to Sunraven. But we're very open. We have a few seats left, so I would encourage those interested to sign up today.
Very good. Well, Peter, again, thank you for calling. Thank you for sharing all of this again with us. And I'll look forward to seeing you on Saturday.
Me too, Michael. Have a great night.
You too. So that's the slow medicine abundist, Peter Harris, and his work really can make a big difference. Again, I think he said it really well that, most of us are taught that more is not only better, but unless we have more, we can't even get through the threshold of quality life or happiness. And I think that that's just something really we can discuss, we can debate. Maybe not everyone agrees with me, but I would say fairly strongly, at least in my experience, quality is the issue. I mean, you can't have nothing. If quantity is close to zero or really struggling, and there is a line beneath which I think people do suffer, but that line is fungible, meaning it moves around a little bit. It's not absolute, and that still the emphasis on quality could really make a difference in terms of the impact and the experience of a person in life, even when the quantity is quite limited. Wouldn't that be nice? And that gets to the subject of health on all levels. Again, I want to invite you to call. We have about 15 minutes for the show, so if you have a question, like to share in this conversation or even reflect a little bit on what you just heard Peter say or what I've said, I welcome that. The number is 914-636-0110. I'm actually quite amazed that I haven't had another call on the subject because I know out there you're listening, you've got to have a question. So give it a shot, 914-636-0110. So in the interim, let me reflect on another question that I get often, and that I did get by email in the week last week when I invited those questions, which has to do with conventional medicine. The story, in short, and I'll paraphrase it, was a woman went to her doctor and wanted to spend some time talking about supplements that she was taking. But the doctor dismissed the conversation, saying, I don't really think you should be taking any supplements. They're a waste of money. So, that's something that I've heard quite a bit. I will also admit, when I was practicing medicine after medical school, that's what I learned in medical school, which was that supplements were a waste of money. And out of my own mouth, I hate to say it, but early on in my practice, I probably said something quite as bothersome. And I look back on that and I cringe because it's such a dismissive statement to begin with, forgetting the fact that I think it's untrue. The idea that a doctor would not give you the time to answer a question about anything you do that you think is important to your health is a reflection of a real problem in the medical institution. I think that this is not just simply about doctors being bad doctors or bad people. I really won't go there because I don't think that's true either. I think the issue is time. To get into the subject of those sorts of things as I'm describing for you now takes time. Takes time to develop the concepts of what is health, how the different elements of health are, held together. How can you maybe address some of these areas, and then let alone how can you specifically respond to a particular challenge, and how you weave these things together. That takes, as you just saw me do in the first 20, 25 minutes of the show, 20, 25 minutes to discuss. I've written my book, by the way, Slow Medicine, so that you could have a handy sort of document, essentially, to walk you through that. But in my mind, physicians should be willing and able in some way, whether it's one-on-one or in their group practices or having workshops or inviting other people to speak to their patients as a group, whatever it is, there's creative ways of responding to those questions. But to dismiss them is bad medicine. And so I'm not giving doctors a complete pass on this because I think that they need to figure out a way. It's their obligation when it comes to health of their patients, especially people we call primary care physicians, to make themselves available or make the information available and to do justice to the information, not just to dismiss it out of hand with old information, old data, old research, old education, but to constantly revise what it is they know and understand about basic life practices like nutrition and supplements and activity and stress management and sleep and relationships and mental health. These are all relatively important subjects that almost everyone faces at one point or another in their lives. And doctors need to be at least interested in those subjects, if not conversant. And if they themselves don't have the information, the relevant information, because it takes a lot to learn also about nutrition and supplements and nutraceuticals and all the terms out there, and let alone perhaps all the complementary therapies, the alternative medicine. There's a lot of things out there that people can avail themselves to, all of which can contribute to a healthy person. So it takes a lot for that. I had to go back to school to spend a couple of years studying just to get some basic information. And then, of course, experience on top of that is all very important. So a single individual doctor may not really know all these answers, but one should not be dismissing the question. And one should ideally have an answer as to who one could be directed to, their patient could be directed to get better information. And I think that's an obligation and responsibility for the medical establishment. So this woman asked that question. So she was basically dismissed. And she said, as I hear often also, which I feel is a problem and is then maybe more personally the issue with an individual physician who I think could do a lot better. But if there's an attitude, a snarkiness, an intolerance in the response to the question, if there's condescending behavior, if there's anything along those lines, then that is a personal problem. That's a physician, by the way, that if you've been treated like that, I think you should steer away from, quite frankly. Nobody deserves to be treated that way. Nobody, should have their legitimate question turned away with the suggestion that for some reason you're not smart enough or you're not capable or it's inappropriate for you to think about a question like that, especially when it's so dominant in conversation in the hallways. So, we're all talking about food. We're all talking about supplements. You go through the same grocery store that I mentioned, it's got a lot of stuff in the middle aisles other than whole food, but one whole aisle is devoted to bottles of pills. One whole aisle. It could be 10% of a grocery store. It's there. People are passing it all the time and using pills to alleviate symptoms of all sorts, some of which, of course, are prescribed, some of which are over-the-counter medications, pharmaceuticals, and a lot of it is in the category of supplements. So there is a really good question here, which is what do I take in the form of a pill to alleviate symptoms or to extend my life or improve the quality and quantities of my life? And I have spoken about them in the past, but let me give you a short answer to that now as well, since I brought it up. But the first thing is the word supplement is an interesting word. And it pretty much tells you what my opinion on the word is. Supplements are supplemental. So that means you're doing something else and you add a supplement to support what else you're doing. So as an example, if you want to take vitamins as a supplement, well, still stick to the whole food, fruits and vegetables that are going to give you most of your natural sources of vitamins. And then you take a supplement to add a little bit of an insurance policy, if you will, to make sure you're not deficient in one or the other. If you have pain and you want to take a supplement that's anti-inflammatory, like a fish oil or a turmeric preparation, then maybe you're doing that, but you're also focusing on an anti-inflammatory diet, meaning less animal products, less processed foods, more fruits and vegetables. Anyway, that's sort of my general approach to supplements. I know I do have a call, though. So, Bruce, you're on the line. Welcome to Slow Medicine Radio.
Thank you, Doctor. Do I address you as Dr. Mike? Dr. Michael?
Dr. Michael is fine, or just simply Michael, believe it or not.
Okay, I'll call you Dr. Michael. Your show is great. I'm in the middle of doing work right now, and I just had to stop everything to rush inside, get on the phone. I wanted to give you a call. Well, there's so many things to talk about. You mentioned whole foods. I mean, I've been doing this for 30 years now, and for me, when I'm really tuned up, when my antenna's high and I'm pulling in the signal from above, I notice that if I eat just whole grains, and then if I go to even a refined whole grain like whole wheat flour or any type of flour, I feel a difference as opposed to eating it whole and using my teeth to chew the product up. So I'm just agreeing with you with the importance of whole foods. And for me, I'm at this point where I'm taking so many vitamins, and I'm thinking there's a part of me that just wants to stop taking them. It's just because there's always a new vitamin that you may be missing, and and they're expensive, and I question the whole thing. And when people ask me, I always give them advice. The most important thing is your lifestyle and your diet. I mean, the best, all those magic pills that someone's selling, it can never replace the importance of just eating, say, a whole foods diet, and and moving your body and your emotions being in the right place and things like and doing the things you love and so forth and so on. So, I question. There's a part of me that wants to just go cold turkey and stop taking vitamins.
Well, first, thank you very much for calling. And two interesting subjects. One is how you feel when you eat sort of a quasi whole foods, like a little bit of a refined whole grain. And the other question you asked, which I think is really interesting, about sort of the whole slew of things that we are hearing about that many people who are mindful and well educated just keep adding to the list, and they eventually come into my office with a shopping bag full of stuff, and that gets to be begs the question: does that make sense? And on one level, it does. Starting with your second point first, it does make sense. Of course, we're interested in our health, and there is new science, and we're getting new information. But I want to suggest that we could overdo it easily, and we can lose the forest for the trees. And as you pointed out yourself, if we can get into a peaceful state of mind, if when we're eating we're relaxed, if we focus on our relationships and harmony and do something in our life that feels meaningful, not that everything is perfect, but we work on those things, the incremental benefit of those is far greater than any supplement, unless you have a specific deficiency. So, for instance, if you're magnesium deficient, you need magnesium. Without magnesium, you're not going to be functioning very well. But most of the fancier cytological vitamins, that we're hearing about now, the intracellular supporting minerals, vitamins, N-acetylcysteine, and the other things that, have complex names, probably incrementally are not quite as critical as what we just said about how you live your life. The other thing about, then going back to your first question about whole foods, is once you break a grain down a little bit, instead of you chewing it with your teeth, a big piece of stone is grinding it, even if it's just the first grind, like, whole, steel cut oats as an example. It's just one turn in the steel mill. You're still doing what your body's digestive tract would normally do that would have slowed down the release of whatever the sources of nourishment, in this case carbohydrates, are in the grain. And so grains are, in any flour preparation, are going to be much different than as a whole, not broken once, not cracked, just whole, because you can't possibly consume the same quantity of grain when it's whole than when you can once it's in a flour of any sort, and quantity there becomes the issue. So I really thank you for your question, because it's so relevant, and you're obviously somebody who takes care of yourself, and you've been working on this. And my point, even for somebody like that, and I'm like that too by tendency, is every once in a while I have to check myself. I have to ask myself, do I really need to do this? And if the list is getting too long, if that shopping bag is getting a little too full, if the medicine cabinets are spilling out, I think the answer to your question is, yeah, I would discontinue a lot of them. I would. I think that's my general answer, and focus on some of the other things for a while and see if qualitatively you feel better. Give it a few months. And if qualitatively you say, hey, I actually do feel better, then that's as important an answer for really, is that the right thing for you, than my speculation or your speculation at this time. And I think every once in a while we do need to take a break. So, Bruce, thank you very much for the call. So we have a minute and a half. Let me tell you about some other things that we're doing at Sunraven coming up, because part of what I think I can help you with, in addition to listening to this show, is to participate, again, in community where more people are doing some of this stuff, so that all you really need to do is show up. So again, this Saturday at 10:30 is the Slow Medicine Approach to Financial Abundance. If you're a woman and want to do a mindful eating and cooking workshop on Tuesday, the 24th, that's a week from tomorrow, we have another workshop led by Elise Morse, one of our great friends, who's going to demonstrate how to prepare bone broth, beef stew, and lamb meatballs. How's that sound? On Thursday next week is the day before the next new moon, and our slow medicine astrologer, Dimitra Vassiliadis, is coming back, as she has been for the last several months, and I'm going to be writing my next moon letter. If you'd like to receive that, go on to the slowmedicinedoctor.com webpage and sign up, and you'll get what I'm writing now, which is a lot about quality and quantity and the difference and the focus. And then lastly, coming up in the spring, but it's not too early to think about gardening, is our garden co-op program. And we're going to have a day of slow living as well in March. If any of that is interesting to you, go to our website, slowmedicine.org. And of course, write me at any time, Michael at slowmedicinedoctor.com. Look forward to hearing your questions. Next week, I'm going to have a colleague of mine from the University of Arizona College of Medicine, specifically the program in integrative medicine, talk about health, women's health in particular, and the state of integrative medicine. So until then, enjoy this next week. Keep your chin up. And let's thank Dr. Martin Luther King one more time for bringing awareness to the subject of human rights and justice.